What is up, guys? Crunchy Frog here, and with the final season of Vanguard upon us with Season 5, we can finally take a complete look at the DLC offerings this year and decide how good or bad the content offering was over the past year. As we begin to fully phase out Vanguard in favor of this fall's Modern Warfare 2, I wanted to take a look at how this year of content stacked up against recent years and even CODs of the past. Basically, just give an overall review of all of the content and DLCs, the post-launch support that we've received for this game, and kind of go season by season and kind of recap what we got, and then give an overall impression of was it good enough or not. I'm not going to do a full dissection numbers wise if we got X amount of maps as compared to Modern Warfare 3 or Black Ops 2 or anything. Just more of a review, a little more subjective thoughts and opinions on what we got there. So beginning with Season 1, it came out on December 8th, it looks like, and that was the first content offering that we got for Vanguard, and it was really the big update that introduced Warzone and Caldera to Vanguard. Obviously, the launch of which was incredibly bugged and kind of divided the community. When Caldera dropped and the Warzone integration to it, there was a lot of kind of mixed feelings on it, and not everyone was pleased, and the game didn't really run that well. But also, adding in Caldera meant that they had to take Verdansk out of the game, which was a huge negative for a lot of people. I know my friend group much preferred Verdansk, and we were still having a good time with it. But a lot of people wanted to shake it up. So the community was kind of torn on that. But it also added in, besides the obvious Warzone implications, it did add in a few multiplayer maps, including a reimagining of the fan favorite Dome, and a bunch of new weapons were added as well, bringing more of an offering for fans to use, as well as kind of padding out that grind time, right? A couple more weapons to try to get to level 70 and get all the camos for. So without further ado, we'll pull up the Season 1 roadmap, of course, and we'll kind of recap everything that they brought. So as you can see, they're starting in the Warzone side of things. Obviously, they brought Caldera, which was a huge change for Warzone, basically taking the core map. Obviously, there's still Rebirth Island, but taking the core map that most people played on and swapping it out for a brand new location. There was a lot of marketing push that this was a tropical resort style in the Pacific Theater. But overall, I wasn't too pleased with Caldera. It was pretty cool, and it was a big shakeup from Verdansk. But given the engine limitations of the original Modern Warfare, I don't think they could quite capture the essence of like a Pacific Island resort as much as they wanted to. And to be honest, it really didn't feel that World War II-ish. Like I know they were really trying for that. You were used to the modern conflict in Verdansk, and then the 1980s Cold War themed, and now here's World War II. But much like the rest of Vanguard, it really didn't succeed in that. So I wouldn't say that I really enjoyed Caldera all that much. It was not something that I enjoyed playing. I think we only played maybe a handful of times, maybe got 1 or 2 wins on it, and that was about it. We kind of cashed out. But with this update, obviously they changed up the Gulag, they added in all of the Vanguard weapons, and even going so far as to create a Vanguard mode that would stand for several weeks, that you could only use Vanguard weapons. And I think that was really cool to emphasize the kind of marrying of Vanguard and Warzone. So force everyone to just use those guns, maybe play Vanguard more to level those guns up, stuff like that. And I like the fact that you couldn't buy your loadout. You had to physically wait for the first one to drop. I think that kind of emphasized ground loot a little more for the few weeks that was a thing. They also added Vanguard Resurgence, which was pretty cool. Obviously, Resurgence modes are always great. They added in the fighter plane, which was kind of a huge step for Call of Duty, being able to pilot a plane, much like Battlefield. I thought that was pretty cool. I only flew in them once or twice, but they were definitely a cool addition. And obviously, a couple more cars to go with that. and a couple new contracts. Nothing too crazy, but the main point of this season was obviously the launch of Warzone, and that's kind of a theme that we'll see carried over to the other seasons, that they really want to push Warzone. This season at least has a bunch for multiplayer and everything like that we'll get to, but more so than anything, this season was touted as, December 8th, Caldeira's coming out, Warzone is coming to Vanguard, everything like that. And so moving over to multiplayer here, obviously they came out with the map Paradise, which was pretty big, a lot of long sight lines, very good for getting long shots. Overall, not one of my favorite maps, but I have had some good games on it, had some good times on it, and overall it's a very middle of the road map. They also came out with a dome reimagining Radar, which obviously I enjoyed a lot. I think it's aesthetically very cool, and it still feels very much so like Dome from back in Modern Warfare 3, which was a favorite map of mine back in the day, so I'm glad that they added that in. Now I will say, just to give my thoughts on the matter, 2 maps for a 2 or 3 month season, I forget exactly how long this season was, I don't believe was enough, especially when one was just a simple reskin. Obviously, I know they had to design the whole new assets. It wasn't just a remaster of a map. But just to add 2 more maps, I would have liked to see maybe a 3rd or a 4th map added, especially since one of them was just a reskin. But unfortunately, that wasn't in the cards. They also added the control mode, which I'm going to be honest, I haven't really played, so I don't have too much thoughts on that. And I do remember, as you see there, they added some new perks and a new lethal grenade. I remember people hating the new lethal grenade. I think it was a fire grenade, which we already had thermite, so I don't really understand, and Molotovs, but they added like the incendiary grenade, and I remember people complaining, especially on Shipment and the Shipmas playlist, which we'll get to soon. It was just a nightmare, and I remember for like a week or 2 back then, people were just off their rocker about it, that it was just almost impossible to play. But those were added, and they kind of fell to the wayside now. You don't see them used as much. In Zombies, as you know, Zombies launched in an absolutely abysmal state, so for Season 1 they tried to rectify that a little bit, adding in a couple new covenants, a new objective, obviously adding in the seasonal weapons, which we'll get to, and then adding a few more challenges. And then obviously in season they did add, and we'll get to this when we get to Season 1 Reloaded, but they did add stuff like the Tome of Rituals, Vonless Office, the round-based stuff, support kill streaks, stuff like that. So they definitely were at this point trying to kind of save their ass when it comes to zombies, but it just wasn't quite happening. And then below that, obviously they incorporated 3 new operators to the game, but only one of which you could actually get for free. So this started one of my main problems with the DLC offering, in that they were trying to introduce a lot of new operators, some of which were admittedly really cool, but you could only get one with like the battle pass or for free with a season, whatever, and the other 2 you had to buy $20, $30 bundles for. And to me, that just kind of sucks, right? The completionist to me really wanted to go through and, at launch, I could do that with every single operator, right? I could unlock them with their challenge, level them up to 20, eventually get their squad up to level 20 and unlock their silver skin and, strive for that gold skin, to get everyone to level 20. But now there was, Season 1 season into the game, by this point, a little under a month into the game, and there's already 2 other operators that I cannot get unless I pay over $40 to get the 2 of them. So that I was pretty mad about. I think Francis was the free one, and then we had Lewis and Isabella. Again, I thought Lewis was a really cool character design, would love to use him, but I wasn't going to fork out $20. So already they were trying to jump for our wallets, and in my mind they kind of lost the plot on that. In terms of weapons, we received 2 new melee weapons with a sawtooth and a katana. I don't personally use melee weapons ever, so I'm just gonna kind of pretend that those don't exist, but that's cool for those that use it. And then obviously the big guys here, the Cooper Carbine, the Gorenko anti-tank rifle, which is basically just the PTRS, and the well gun. The Cooper Carbine to this day is still a meta tank. People use it all the time in multiplayer. In Warzone, it's one of my favorite guns to use multiplayer. As a matter of fact, I've been using it a lot these last couple of weeks. I've been, streaming Vanguard and trying to get gameplay and everything, and I just love using the Cooper Carbine. The PTRS I haven't really used, but it was one of my favorite favorite guns in World War II, so I was super psyched to see that join the game. And then obviously the well gun for a while there was one of the best SMGs you could use, and definitely one of my favorites as well. In terms of bundles, aside from the Krampus one, there wasn't anything too egregious. I knew there was a couple Mastercraft weapons that were kind of goofy and off the wall and kind of crazy, but to me it still felt, a lot of the cosmetics were still kind of World War II themed. And if you've watched my previous video on the issue I have with, losing its World War II setting and theme, you'll know that I really hated as that started to fall off. So luckily his first season wasn't too terrible, if I remember correctly. But the Krampus skin was definitely an interesting one for sure. And that brings us to the final point, which was just obviously this was the season where we had the Festive Fervor event and Shipmas and everything like that. Unfortunately, I don't have gameplay for you guys for that. I did not have a capture card back then. But that was a crazy time, and I really enjoyed playing Shipmas. Greatly designed map, super fun. The Shipmas 24/7 playlist got me through a lot of my vacation time that I took around Christmas. Just so fun. Then obviously we had Season 1 Reloaded, which again was mainly a zombies themed update. It brought in the quote unquote survival mode to Shinonuma, which was only part of the Shinonuma map that we would later then get all of in a separate... It wasn't really worth it. It was definitely a band-aid. They were trying to make people not as mad at them, and that was their only solution. But they did bring in a lot of updates to zombies. You could tell they were really trying to backpedal and win the community over. Too little, too late, obviously, but it was a huge improvement over what zombies was like at launch. I mean, it brought pack-a-punch camos, which weren't even included at launch, so that really tells you something. Overall, it was a solid first outing for Vanguard. Warzone, for better or worse, got the bulk of the attention, a trend that we'll kind of see throughout the rest of these seasons. The two multiplayer maps that were added were okay at best, and the Cooper Carbine and Well Gun will go on to be absolute beasts in the meta for Warzone and multiplayer. And the Christmas event, while not as fleshed out as the previous year's celebrations, the previous Christmas events we've had for COD, it added a nice touch to the game, and obviously around the Christmas time, it was a nice thing to have, kind of get you in the spirit, so to speak. But yeah, other than that, despite some skins and Mastercraft bundles not exactly adhering to the World War II theme, the season overall was still pretty grounded, in my opinion, a great beginning for the DLC season, even if I would have liked to see an additional new multiplayer map added. And then, obviously, Season 1 Reloaded also helped to bring a lot of relief to the zombies community, even if it was impossible to essentially polish a turd at that point, right? Zombies was in such a poor state that, barring a complete overhaul 180, they weren't going to save it, but they could at the very least kind of bring it up to a somewhat standard of living. So we'll move right on to Season 2, which was hailed as the Armored War Machines bundle. And straight from the beginning, I kind of started to fall off of Vanguard at this point for a little bit. I was just playing other games. I kind of wasn't gaming as much, but they really touted this as the Arms Race bundle. They were really trying to push Arms Race. The kicker is we never got another map, and I don't think anyone played it. I don't think anyone cared about it ever again. But they touted this as the Arms Race update, which we'll get to in a second. But yeah, other than that, let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of the offering. First up, we have for Warzone. Obviously, they added a bunch of new POIs. I'm not 100% sure, but I think this was the update where they tried to take away some of the foliage in the map here and there. and really begin kind of changing up the POIs on the map to make Caldera a little more palatable to everyone. So we got things like Chemical Factory, Research Labs, and then there was also in season the Rebirth Reinforced game mode, which completely changed the look of Rebirth Island and kind of gave it a new coat of paint and a couple new POIs, stuff like that. They also added Caldera Clash, which, if memory serves correctly, was like the big TDM type mode that we saw in back in Modern Warfare, as well as Rebirth Island Iron Trials. I don't have too much to say about that. I don't think I ever did that. Again, I wasn't playing the game much at this point, and when I was, I certainly wasn't doing the weird, limited time modes, the LTMs for Warzone. I would just hop in and play normal Warzone. But they did also add in the bomber vehicle, which I always thought was really cool, to Caldera, to kind of spice things up there as well. Finally, for Warzone, we see they did add the redeploy balloons, which are, in my mind, a great addition, and they've gotten me out of a lot of pinches, and I think they're a necessary addition. So it's cool that they added those in this update. They also added an armor transport, which, again, I think I used once, and we got killed out of it anyways, so not something that I really used a lot, or that I would say was a great addition to the game. And then they added the Nebula V ammo, the Nebula 5 ammo, and the portable decontamination stations, which are really cool. Obviously, the Nebula rounds are kind of stopping power, more or less. They do a lot more damage. They poison you. And then those portable decontamination stations act as a mini air bubble for in the gas, which obviously helps you immensely late game and helps you out of a pinch. So those were two great additions. Again, you can already see they're trying to push as much Warzone content as possible. That's the cash cow. That's what's making money. By this point, it was painfully obvious that Vanguard hadn't done that well, and thus the multiplayer wasn't going to be where they were going to be making money. So for multiplayer, we got 2 maps again, like Season 1, both of them brand new maps this time. So I have to applaud them for, at that point, at least making up and conceptualizing 2 brand new maps. Gondola was kind of okay. I've had a couple good games on it and had some fun with it, but overall not my favorite map. I feel it doesn't flow that well, but it is unique, and so I'll give them that. It's a nice, unique, fun map. It's just not always enjoyable to play, especially if the other team really likes to camp and just holds down sight lines and you just run to your death every 5 minutes. So Casablanca is actually one of my favorite maps in this game. The more I play it, the more it grows on me. The more I feel I can kind of play it strategically. It almost feels like a older Call of Duty map, just with a little more verticality. So I definitely have enjoyed my time on that. Obviously I don't want to give you guys a full review of all these maps and everything. This video would be like 4 hours long, but it was definitely, Casablanca was definitely a map that I really enjoyed. So 2 solid maps that we got. Unfortunately, again, only 2. So this season came out February 14th and ran until I think sometime in April. And so at that point, we only had 4 multiplayer, well, if you don't count shipment, 5, I guess, multiplayer maps added for the first 5 or 6 months that the game was out, which in my mind is just not good enough to keep it fresh and exciting and bolster the content. They also added ranked play, which is huge. I don't partake because I feel like I already play ranked play enough when I do normal queue because of skill-based matchmaking, but that was a huge addition, and I'm always super happy to see them add that, because the community asked for it time and time again, and I'm always excited when they actually bring it. And then like we mentioned earlier, they added arms race, which was supposed to kind of be like the dirty bomb thing from Cold War, kind of the ground war replacement for this game. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I played it a total of 3 matches, and I still didn't know what I was doing. It just felt like a big ground war. I didn't like the map very much. The visuals were very cool, and honestly, it felt like one of the most World War II-like experiences that this game has to offer, funnily enough. which is great for, immersion and kind of bringing it back to what it's supposed to be. But for me, it's just not that fun, and overall, I didn't really enjoy it. So I don't have too many thoughts on it. I didn't play it a whole bunch, and I don't know anyone that did. And this is the only time they added it, right? I kind of expected them to add a map or two every season going forward for this, like they did for Ground War. They didn't. This was it. They did one map, nobody played it, I think, and I don't even know if you can. I think there's still an option to play it on the Warzone main menu, but I'm not 100% sure. Either way, it was not well received and kind of pointless. Obviously, we also had the KGM40 and the Whitley. Those were those were both great weapons. Obviously, the Whitley, I have some issues with this whole iron sight and the weird like zoom magnification level it is when you aim down sights, but overall they were both pretty solid weapons, and they've been mainstays of ground loot in Warzone ever since. And honestly, that's probably the most I've used them as ground loot in Warzone. They've definitely helped me out of a pinch several times. Moving on to zombies, they tried again. Everyone hated the non-round based objective based mode that was included, Duran Fong, that was included on the disc. So what did they do? They added another one, this time set in Africa. Terra Maldicta. I will say I have yet to play this game, or this map rather. I was not impressed by the original offering of zombies on disc. And so whenever I heard that this one would be the same thing, but maybe slightly better and just set in a different location, I was immediately out. I didn't touch it. And most of the people I know and most of the YouTubers I watch felt the same way, right? They either only touched it enough to get content for their channel, or they just straight up didn't play it at all. I don't think anybody really enjoyed it. It was not that great. Again, they gave people more of what they didn't want, and that was about it. They also added the Decimator Shield and the Ray Gun. Obviously, fans love the Ray Gun, and from what I heard, the Ray Gun was actually pretty powerful. They brought it back to being a kind of a force to be reckoned with. So that's great. I'm happy that they added that. And I am happy that they made zombie content. The only issue is they made more stuff that nobody wanted, and thus it was kind of pointless. It didn't really help to fix the zombie mode whatsoever. They also added another objective, another ally, which, does anyone really care? Another like distorted alien god voice, whatever, that talks to you while you're doing things. I personally could give two shits. So that's all well and good. And they did add a new artifact, which is like your super ability, quote unquote, that you get to use. So again, a decent offering for zombies, but not something that really righted the ship at all, and it just kind of pushed more and more people away from zombies. Getting over into the weapons and operators, obviously we already talked about the two weapons. There was also an ice axe melee weapon that was included in this season. And then they did introduce 3 operators again. And as you can guess, 1 was free, 2 were not. And so I remember really wanting to buy Thomas. I think he had the same last name as me, if I could recall. Or there was something about him that I really wanted. I don't exactly remember what. But the operator Thomas. And I was like, oh, I can't wait to unlock him in the Battle Pass. Until I found out that I'd have to pay $20 to get him. That was an instant nope. So again, they're putting 3 new operators into the game, which is awesome, and it's a lot of content. Except for realistically, you're only going to get 1 unless you want to pay almost the price of the game for 2 more, which I did not. So, and then obviously the new bundles, they were steadily getting crazier and crazier. As you can see, I forget when exactly I'm going to put these graphics up versus the gameplay, but if you recall from the graphic that I flashed on screen, there was like the Valentine's Day like Cuddle Bear costume. There was the Heartbreaker skin, which he looks like a modern kind of soldier with hearts for eyes, and there was like a futuristic Viking, or not futuristic, but like a kind of mythical looking Viking skin. In it, there was a bunch of weapon variants that were kind of crazy. So again, they're starting to get wilder and wilder as the seasons went on, in an effort to, make more money, right? Crazier skins hopefully means more clicks, means more buys, everything like that. Um, Overall, not a crazy season, in my opinion. Again, I enjoyed the multiplayer maps. There's just not that much there. They're really pushing for two things at this point, which is Warzone and store bundles. And that leaves the core multiplayer service, and experience kind of lacking. I would have liked to see at least three multiplayer maps. They did well with the guns, and I just wish they would have given us a way to earn the other two operators, and then maybe a way to purchase them to get them right away or something. So we had the best of both worlds. I also forgot to mention earlier, but they did add two new perks to the game. I don't think I've used either of them, but if I recall correctly, they stated that they were mainly to help with the arms race mode, which again, nobody played. And it's not something I think we'll really revisit at any point in the future. Season 2 Reloaded was a huge kind of update, for Warzone, like I'd mentioned before, where they revamped all of the Rebirth Island, a lot of new POIs that still stand today. And then obviously they added that arms race mode. And just not a whole lot that we haven't covered already, since they kind of already spoke about it in the normal roadmap. But the one thing that I did want to touch on was this is when they released the Snoop Dogg skin, which, don't get me wrong, Snoop Dogg, super cool, right? I would love him in a lot of video games. A World War II shooter, not so much. There's a lot of memes going around. I remember when my grandpa told me he fought alongside Snoop, on the beaches of Normandy, stuff like that. I feel like this was their first real crossover kind of event, and they just get wilder and wilder as it goes. And this was kind of the beginning of the end in terms of jumping the shark for Call of Duty Vanguard. And so, again, not a horrible concept in and of itself, but definitely the beginning of the slippery slope. So we'll move on then to Season 3, which was listed as Classified Arms. And this was really when the shark was welly and fully jumped, by this point. So the main attraction to this whole event was the Operation Monarch Godzilla versus King Kong tie-in, which kind of, was their big push, their big marketing push. Everything they were pushing for Warzone was, the Operation Monarch event, where you got to use like Godzilla and King Kong as kill streaks and everything. And they had a whole bunch of new stuff that they wanted to try for Warzone. And I'm not going to lie, this is when Vanguard really started to lose me. It's just totally crazy at this point, right? We have three of the main store bundles that they added were a tracer pack for Kong, which you literally looked like a giant gorilla. But then the even crazier ones were the tracer pack for Godzilla Reactive Mastercraft and the Mecha Godzilla. So you were literally running around as a robot or a Godzilla. Everyone was glowing red and blue and turquoise, and their guns were all firing these laser beams. And it just went from a World War II shooter that took some liberties with history in terms of attachments and other things, and then it just became this weird, like, what am I playing? Like, what is happening? Like, me and Snoop Dogg just got gunned down by King Kong and Mecha Godzilla, and everyone's using like laser rifles, and it's just absolutely crazy. So I don't have a lot positive to say about this DLC season. I did not play the Operation Monarch mode in Warzone, so I really apologize. I know that was such a huge part of the season, but I don't really have any comments about that other than that seemed fun. In the context of Warzone, obviously there's kind of a timeline, but not really. So I'm a little more lenient with that in terms of like it seeming ridiculous. But it sounded fun from what everyone said, and I'm sure it was a great event, and I definitely pride them on, stretching the engine enough to include these massive animals and stuff like that. but just not something, not my cup of tea. We typically just like normal Warzone or even Resurgence nowadays. We've been playing a lot of, so it wasn't something that drew me in. But that was their big push. Again, multiplayer. They were kind of like, yeah, we have a multiplayer. You can rank up guns for Warzone. They focused all of their attention on Warzone with that event and everything else. In terms of new weapons and bundles, obviously we got the M1916, which I know was kind of good whenever it launched, but I haven't really seen anyone use it since. I don't think I've ever used it in a match myself. Then they also added the Nikita AVT assault rifle, which is an absolute beast. I love the gun. It was the meta for a while in Warzone and multiplayer. It's just a great, cool weapon, a fun weapon, and I thoroughly have enjoyed using it. So kudos to the team at Sledgehammer for that one. That was a great post-launch weapon, and definitely one that I'm going to remember as the years go by. Looking back on the weapons of this game. They also added the Junkyard Jet. It's a melee weapon. I think that was just a bundle that you could buy. I could be wrong. Again, I don't use melee weapons, so I'm not too sure. But I remember thinking it looked really cool, even if, again, totally anachronistic. Not really a World War II weapon. But it's a melee weapon, so I guess anything could be used as a melee weapon. Again, in terms of the bundles, as you saw from the graphic on screen for the roadmap, there was a couple crazy ones in there. By this point, they were just, again, trying to make each Mastercraft a little bit more crazy to try to get in money. The game was falling off. I remember during this time is when YouTubers were making videos about the player count versus, this game versus Modern Warfare and everything like that. It was starting to go downhill. It was towards the end of April already after the game had come out, and the game was faltering hard. So they were trying to rack in as much money as possible, obviously with the Godzilla skins and the crazy Mastercraft weapons, everything like that. Once more, they added 3 new operators in terms of Mateo, Florence, and Kim Tae-young. I think Florence was the free one. Again, they did the whole one's free, 2 you have to pay for thing, which, at risk of sounding like a broken record, is kind of dumb in my opinion. It kind of sucks that there are now so many. By this point, there's 6 operators that you cannot, 7 operators if you count Snoop Dogg, that you cannot unlock unless you physically buy $20 bundles. So that kind of sucks. I'm not too happy about that, and none of the operators really stood out to me at all. So kind of lame in that department, but by this point I was using just the base game operators just to try to rank them up to get the Masterwork skin for all of them. In terms of multiplayer maps, I will say they added Mayhem, and Mayhem is one of my favorite maps on this game. Now, that's kind of a controversial opinion. I know a lot of people hate it, but for me, Mayhem is one of my favorite maps. I think it's so cool, first of all, the fact that you're playing in a 1950s movie set, with the tiny miniaturized town, you're stomping around like Godzilla would have. I think the map is fun and frenetic in terms of gameplay, but I think the setting is also way out there and super cool. So I want to commend them for that. We've kind of given them crap throughout this video for lackluster maps or unimaginative ones. This one, not at all. Totally cool, and to be honest, not that crazy out of theme for the game. Obviously, it was themed to go with the Godzilla vs. Kong event, but also it was definitely meant to be like that era of 1940s to 1960s sci-fi movies that they would use these movie sets for. So it kind of tied in with the World War II setting, believe it or not. So I thought that was pretty cool. They also added a map Sphere, which was kind of cool. It was kind of like Area 51 type vibes. Reminded me a lot of the area for Buried, the Zombies DLC map from Black Ops 2. Again, cool concept. I didn't like how the map flowed, really. It wasn't one of my favorite maps, but it was a very cool idea. And again, a little too sci-fi-y for me for my World War II maps, but it definitely was still a cool concept, and I know they were still going for a sci-fi, kind of skunk works operation, kind of thing. So overall, not too bad, but not one of my favorite maps. They also introduced the trophy system after much complaining by the community. Ironically enough, they started out the year saying we didn't add the trophy system because there are no trophy systems in World War II. Despite them adding 10 attachments to every weapon, Snoop Dogg, and countless other huge out of period technology and guns and everything like that. But they finally decided that trophy systems were allowable in World War II, and they added that. A bunch of people were happy about that. Obviously, trophy systems are super helpful in game. And then they added a couple more ranked play season rewards. Again, I didn't play it, so not too much to say there. Vanguard Zombies, I don't think they added too much at this point. New weapons, new unlock challenges, and season challenges. But again, nothing too crazy because by this point they were already planning on reworking zombies into the eventual round-based Shino Numa that we'll get to here in a little bit. So overall, my thoughts on Season 3, the Classified Arms expansion. It wasn't the greatest. Again, by this point, I wasn't playing too much. But I definitely applaud them for what they tried to do in Warzone. It was new, it was exciting. Wasn't something that drew me in, but I do have to applaud them for doing something new. In terms of multiplayer, again, left by the wayside. Only 2 maps, albeit both of them were pretty cool. And one of them happens to be definitely my top 5 or maybe even top 3 maps of this game. So I definitely really enjoyed the maps that they gave, but again, a little not enough, essentially. I would have liked to see maybe another remaster here, another remade map or reimagined map, something to pad out the map count a little bit. And then the guns obviously were pretty good. But overall, you could tell that their full focus by this point has already shifted completely to Warzone, and they're kind of seemingly embarrassed over Vanguard sales, and their multiplayer content is reflecting that. And then that moves us on to Season 4, which was the season that just wrapped up last week, I believe. And this was the massive update that, again, mainly a huge update for Warzone, admittedly. But to me, this is one of the beefiest updates that they've pushed. So I really commend them. That there was a lot released during this season, and it was kind of awesome to see. I'm not gonna lie. They created a brand new Resurgence map. So as you know, COD has one big traditional battle royale map, and then they have a smaller map usually fit for Resurgence type game modes, respawn type battle royales. And this time they got rid of Rebirth for a couple, I think a week or 2 or something like that, and they put in Fortune's Keep, which is actually the week that I'm recording this is in the rotation. So we've been playing it for the last week or so. And they added, obviously an entire new map, which was awesome. We love to see that. I did not expect them to add a brand new map. But definitely good to see. We'll get into, a little bit more about Fortune's Keep as I go down through. But overall, I think it's a pretty cool map, if not maybe a little too hectic and a little too wide open in spots. They also had a big Caldera update where they added a couple more POIs. Again, they further reduced the vegetation. I think this is the update that reduced it 50% of what it was at launch, or some crazy stuff like that. It was a massive reduction, and the people loved it. Right? Everyone I've talked to said that the map is a lot better now than when it was at launch. So I got to give it to Sledgehammer for continuing to work on and adapt and change Caldera. Obviously, being that it's Warzone, it's getting a lot of attention, unlike multiplayer. But, definitely cool to see Caldera evolve and turn into a better map, even if I myself am not playing it. They also, with the season, they gave you the ability to get the portable redeploys as a box loot that you could kind of put down your own redeployed balloon, just kind of making, iterating upon the deployed balloons from a couple seasons ago. That was pretty cool. The cache extraction, those are actually kind of fun. My teammates, my friends that I always play with, they kind of hate them, but I like being able to, the AI that drops with them, they're pretty easy to kill, stuff like that. So I enjoy, killing them and making myself feel better after I just, lost 12 times in a row by that point. And then grabbing the loot. I think that's a pretty cool mechanic. So they added that in. They added the EMP grenade and black market runs, which I haven't done too much. And then obviously they added a whole bunch of new modes. Capping off with Rebirth of the Dead, that was kind of in the Reloaded section, which we played for a while and was pretty fun. And overall, it was a nice breath of fresh air, something exciting that actually got me to turn on my Xbox to explicitly play Warzone at that point. So I'm kind of glad. I'm happy that they added a game mode like that. I remember playing the similar mode back in Verdansk for Halloween the one year. So yeah, the Rebirth of the Dead was super fun. Not something that I would do full time. I didn't play it too much. Definitely for a few nights we tried running a couple rounds of that a night and enjoyed that. Overall, before I move on to the zombies and the multiplayer stuff, to kind of cap off about Fortune's Keep. Overall, I think the map is pretty cool. It's a really unique location. I love the Mediterranean architecture and kind of the pirate vibes that you get from some of the area. We've played on the map enough to where it feels almost like home, just like Rebirth Island, just like Verdansk. And overall, I do enjoy it. I will say it gets very hectic sometimes. The first week we played, I felt like I didn't get out of a gunfight at any point. Like it was just gunfight after gunfight. If I wasn't shooting somebody, I was getting shot. And it was just kind of rough. But I think, as the players and the community kind of learn the map more, it's kind of settled down now. People have more rotation routes and drop places and everything like that. So they're kind of settling into a rhythm. Recently, they just updated for more people on the map, which kind of sucks, and it's kind of tanked it back to being a little bit absurd. But overall, I really enjoy the map, and I really enjoy that they brought a map to Warzone. I think that's a huge addition. It takes a lot of work, so I commend them for doing that. So sliding on over to multiplayer, there was 2 maps added. Again, only 2, unfortunately, and one of which was a remake. And not even a remake of a fan favorite map, not a remake of a map that you hold near and dear to your heart from 2010. No, the USS Texas, which was one of my least favorite maps in World War II, Call of Duty World War II, and one of my least favorite maps in this game. I think they flip-flopped the 2 lanes, if I recall correctly. They did a couple other stylistic changes and layout changes, but overall, it's still USS Texas. It's still not that great. I have some good games on it. I have some absolutely terrible games on it. I don't think I hate it as much as I did in World War II, but it's definitely not a fan favorite. And for that to be one of the only 2 maps they brought back just seemed really lazy and kind of sucky. Because, all before, all of our remade maps are like, oh, thank God, I've been waiting to play this. I haven't played this in 5 years and 10 years. And nobody has ever said that about USS Texas. And being that it was a Sledgehammer map, that was just a simple reskin. I know they changed the 2 lanes, so yes, it took some work, but still it felt lazy when we could have had 3 maps, and maybe that would have been the 3rd one. But that meant that we only got 1 all-new map. And I've only played it on it a handful of times. For some reason, it has not come up in the rotation much, but I've only played it a handful of times. Haven't quite enjoyed it. It's a cool-looking map. It's very cool-looking, but not one of my favorites. I don't like the flow of it. It's very all over the place. And most of the people that I've watched that have kind of reviewed that content have said the same thing. It's kind of an all over the place map that they're not too keen on. So again, only 2 maps. All of that effort put into Warzone, almost none of it into the Vanguard multiplayer, which really kind of sucks. They also added the Marco 5 and the UGM 8. Marco, obviously, if you've played Warzone or multiplayer in the last 2 or 3 months, you'll know that Marco is just an absolute god in the meta. It is insane. And I really enjoy using it. No shame in it. So I'm, obviously a super good weapon for them to add. And then the UGM 8, which is a machine gun. I actually really enjoy using it as well. I thought it was pretty cool. And then in season, they also added the push dagger, which kind of looks like a sharp butt plug, and the weapon logo looks even more so like one. We're not gonna get into that though. Again, it's a melee weapon I don't use. And then they added the Vargo S, which again, pretty good assault rifle. Love using it in Warzone, and I've used it a couple times in multiplayer to good results. So definitely good weapons. They are adding good weapons, but you know they're mainly adding those weapons for Warzone, as referenced by them being in every box that you open. So the multiplayer benefits from those being added, but at the same time, you know, is just an afterthought, right? You know, they added it for Warzone. The fact that you can use them in multiplayer is just a plus. So again, multiplayer got kind of an anemic offering besides a whole bunch of crazy bundles and ridiculous stuff that should never be a thing. Um, and if I recall correctly, I think this may have been the season where they started adding all kinds of crazy operators and tie-ins. I think towards the end of the season is when the Terminator thing happened, um, which not even going to get into that. I have a whole video, you know, bitching and moaning about skins and DLC and everything. So we'll just forget about that. But again, they gave us 3 operators. You can guess only one of them is attainable. But I will say they gave us Captain Butcher. So that was pretty cool, I gotta say. But again, by this point, the plot was completely lost. None of this was actually meant to be World War II. People memed on how nonsensical like the intro trailer was. Like it made no sense. Everything is now like gold plated, and it was all about Warzone. At this point, which would have been June 22nd, it arrived on. And, you know, come June, Vanguard is only being used as a place to level up your weapons to then use in Warzone, unfortunately. So everything was just crazy off the wall. All the skins were anachronistic. The Violet Stealth Pro Pack, which you see all the try-hard G Fuel snorting kids using in Warzone and multiplayer, the Rose Skin 2.0 essentially. You know, featured on this roadmap, they have like the Rohanium Glow Reactive Mastercraft, which is just super cool looking, admittedly, but again, no place in a World War II shooter, and a bunch of other crazy skins and bundles that I'm not really going to get into. But the big one, and the one I'm kind of actually the most happy for, was they finally brought round-based zombies to Vanguard, which is crazy to hear. It's almost like I'm saying they finally added an engine to a car, but they finally brought round-based zombies to Vanguard in the form of Shinonuma. So they didn't design a whole new map for us. They didn't give us a whole new story or, you know, cool characters like the original crew or anything. They did give us a map that we've played 3 or 4 iterations of in the past, and it was already in the game. But I guess at that point, with a skeleton crew and an overworked Treyarch team that has been building zombies for like 6 straight years now instead of taking a break like they normally would, this is what we get. Overall, the map was very fun. We played it probably for a week or so there. We were playing it every single night, my group of friends. We had a good time doing the Wonderwaff Easter egg. They brought back the Wonderwaff. In addition to getting into the box, there's also a cool Easter egg step to go through. So that was always fun. You know, I enjoy doing Easter eggs and stuff like that. So we loved doing that a couple nights. And they even added a new area of Shinonuma, so they did put some work into it, which is cool, and I really do enjoy the new dig site area that they've added. Overall, I think this is the coolest iteration of Shinonuma so far, and I really enjoyed it. They got a new Pack-a-Punch camo. Again, there was like a whole actual big Easter egg that you could do with a boss fight. They really poured a lot of love into zombies, finally. But again, by this point, it's June 22nd. So it was June 22nd, and they finally said, "Oh, hey guys, we we added a round-based zombies map, and it's a map that you've played 3 times before." So again, a little too little, too late. But I was very happy that they added it, and I gotta say, I had a lot of fun with it. And I have since gone back and played it once or twice before, just for the fun of it. So not even to get content or level up weapons or operators or anything, but just legitimately to have some fun, which is a rare thing to say about Vanguard. So I give it to them, give them the slow clap for adding that in. So overall, this season was an absolute monster in terms of content. We had Fortune's Keep for Warzone, an entirely new map. Zombies got finally its first round-based experience with an Easter egg and a wonder weapon and everything like that. Even if most of it was reused, it's still welcome. I think in a normal year we would have lambasted them for how much was reused, but in the year of Vanguard, we praise them for finally giving us what we asked for all along. And finally, multiplayer got crazier and crazier further down the drain in terms of the bundles that were offered in the store, while the map department still lacking as ever with only one original map released. And a couple new cool guns were added as well, but we both know those were mainly used for Vanguard. So finally, we will wrap up this video with where we are at now, which is Season 5, the last season for Vanguard. They're not doing 6 seasons like the past couple games. They are only doing 5. And wow, what a season, right? It just dropped. I'm recording this on the 28th. They dropped this on the 24th. And this is just, this is something, guys. I'm not going to lie. I'm not too happy about the stuff that they brought. We'll start off in Warzone. There is an Operation Last Call, which is on Caldera. I know that there's a whole, kind of experience where you have to plant the bomb, defuse the bomb. There's like Heroes versus Villain community event. I don't play Caldera, so I'm not sure what the event is. The Heroes versus Villain thing seems like a neat community event, but just doesn't have any real place and doesn't make any sense. The trailer made no sense. So I'm not sure what exactly we're doing. I just know I pick tokens out of boxes now when I play Warzone, and they get in the way of me trying to pick up the weapons that I need. So nothing crazy with that. I will say the supply box UAV kill streak, pair that with the personal supply box, are absolutely awesome. In fact, I can pick up a UAV that tells me where all of the supply boxes are around me is super cool, and it tells you the rarity, so you see the orange ones versus just the blue boxes, and then the resurgence boxes if you're playing resurgence. But then you also get the personal supply box, which is kind of like a loadout, except for it only drops the weapons and I think maybe the lethal that comes with it. Which I think is super cool. I think that's such a cool addition to the game. I think it's neat that they finally added something like that you can kind of get your load up, not really. But this does push Warzone further down the quote-unquote loot doesn't matter, just use your custom created weapons anyways, which a lot of people are complaining about. So depending on how you feel about the situation, is how you'll feel about the personal supply boxes. I think they're pretty cool. So kudos to the devs for that. In terms of multiplayer, so again, they're doing the whole 2 new maps. And so far we have Beheaded. You'll probably be seeing gameplay somewhere, depending on how Future Me edits this video. You'll be seeing gameplay of Beheaded at some point during this section. Thematically, such a cool map. Such a cool map. A map set in Times Square. For some reason, the Statue of Liberty's head is there. Not really sure. I think they said like a hurricane or a war or something happened. I don't really know how it ended up that way, but it is really cool thematically. Gameplay-wise, it's not my favorite. It's slightly growing on me. I've definitely had a couple good matches on it that were fun, but by and large, again, just kind of a Swiss cheese map, I call them. Super cool in looks and visuals, but the map has the flow of molasses in January. It's very just out in the open, a bunch of hurdles, movement isn't fluid. There's not cover to cover that you can go to. It's just very kind of, it honestly, I described it to my friend as Piccadilly 2.0, because it kind of reminds me a lot of Piccadilly, both in terms of setting and just how the map's laid out. And we all know how we all felt about about Piccadilly. There also is one more map coming that at the time of recording has not come out yet, so I can't give thoughts on it. It's called Fortress, just based off the picture and the couple of things I've heard about it. Shaping up to be kind of neat. We'll see how that turns out. Now on to the part that's really going to give me just a stomach ulcer to talk about. They added 4 new operators. Now, I'm not sure, at the time of this, I'm not sure which ones are going to be free versus which ones are going to be paid, or if they're all going to be paid. I know you get Raul Menendez. Yeah, I can't believe I said those words with a World War II game, but for free in the DLC. So you get, they're essentially just 4 returning characters from past games. They have no connection to the game whatsoever. I don't know why they brought them back. I don't know. They have no bearing in the Modern Warfare series, really, aside from Khaled al-Assad, I guess. There's one. But, like, Menendez has nothing to do with it. Seraph from Black Ops 3 and 4, I don't know what she has to do with anything. And then there's Gabriel Rourke from Ghosts, which obviously Ghosts has nothing to do. So I'm not sure where these came from. It feels like they just picked 4 characters from previous games and they said, look, you know these people, please buy these skins. And just kind of dangled them in front of us. I think it's really stupid. I'm sorry. Again, not that I want this to be a History Channel documentary on World War II, but we've just completely lost the plot at this point. They're throwing in everything they can and hoping for the best. So that kind of sucks to see. But at the same time, these are all cool characters in their own right. And I know that they were all, again, mainly added for Warzone. They're not adding stuff for it to be fun in Vanguard anymore. It's all for Warzone. And I guess that ties into their whole Heroes versus Villains event that they wanted to have. So it's hard to say which came first, the chicken or the egg, the event or the 4 random operators they added, but we'll have to see. And again, my apologies, I don't know which ones are free versus paid. I do know that Raul Menendez is free. I have unlocked him with a Battle Pass. I think the free Battle Pass, you get them. The other ones will probably be tied to a $20 or $30 skin bundle that I'm never going to touch. Now on to the weapons. And again, I mean, at this point, they added the EX1, which is a laser rifle. And I don't mean laser rifle in terms of like it has a skin that shoots tracer rounds and makes it look... No, like an actual energy laser rifle. In a World War II shooter. They're just kind of doing whatever sticks at this point. I think that someone said it was from Advanced Warfare originally, so that makes sense with Sledgehammer and everything, but just why? It's overpowered as hell, as the current states. Again, by the time you guys are watching this, there might be a patch out that fixes that or whatever. It's super hard to see. If people are shooting you with that thing, it is just like a nightmare. So it's super unbalanced at this point. I just think it's dumb. I don't want it in the game. I know I sound like an old guy, yelling to stay off my lawn, but it just has no point. And it further reinforces that Sledgehammer kind of wanted to build a futuristic game, and Activision kind of, snapped their fingers and wished for a World War II game instead. They also have the Valois revolver. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I apologize. That looks cool. From what I've heard and read by people that have used it, it is completely pointless though. It's kind of weak. But the melee animation is a one-hit kill and it's super cool. So that's a nice kind of hybrid weapon. It's cool that they added that. And then we get the RA-25 at some point. I'm not sure if that's in season or during this battle pass. But again, this is just another generic SMG. I haven't had the chance to use it yet. A couple people used it in private matches that I've talked to, and they said it's just another generic SMG. Another 70 levels for you to grind. They're also adding the F2000, or a similar kind of weapon, the F2000. Obviously, it's called something different now, but like the gun from Modern Warfare 2. Again, this one makes even less sense. Like, it's one thing to make a laser rifle as like a neat, like, kind of concept thing. It's another thing just to slap like a straight up Modern Warfare gun. Unless this is some kind of tie-in, this is maybe released, if it is releasing at the Reloaded thing, they might be doing it around Call of Duty Next. So this is the Modern Warfare integration type thing in terms of branding and Warzone integration and everything. That would make sense. So if they're doing it for that reason, I'll give them a pass. But again, we're using like a modern combat bullpup rifle in a World War II game. It doesn't make any sense. But I'm gonna stop beating the dead horse on that front. They also have the Liana 57, which I actually, up until making this video, completely forgot that was coming. It looks to be an assault rifle of some sort. I guess we'll see as the season wears on. And then obviously they have a whole slew of crossover bundles and, cool skins and stuff like that are going to raid people's wallets on that front. And then in terms of zombies, they did release their final round-based zombies experience. The Treyarch team kind of announced that they're going to step back and take a break from zombies for a while. Thank God for those guys and for us. And they delivered the Archon, which is really just Terra Maledicta from Season 2. Except for now it's kind of strung together, and it has an Easter egg that you can do in a boss fight, and it's round-based. I've played it. It's not that great. It has no personality whatsoever. It honestly still feels like I'm just playing a objective-based game, just with the roles mixed up, and I survive rounds instead of objectives. So, not too happy about that, but I am happy they gave us another round-based experience and tied in an Easter egg and everything like that to it as well. So I appreciate them doing that. But I am glad that they're finally taking a break and actually working towards the next great thing. So yeah, overall, I can't really give a full retrospective on this season since it's still ongoing. But just to wrap things up, guys, I know this has been a wallop of a video. We're going on just over an hour, but I wanted to give a full kind of breakdown of everything thus far. Overall, I'm not too happy with the content offering for Vanguard this year. I think a lot of it was geared towards Warzone and Warzone only. You can definitely tell that since Vanguard did not do so well in the multiplayer or in the sales department, the multiplayer side of things just took a hit. Vanguard multiplayer now just feels like this crazy mismatch of ideas that only serve as like leftover from Warzone. Everything they develop, everything they think of, every skin, every weapon, every idea, every game mechanic that they try adding through all these seasons are built for Warzone or to pump money, in from the microtransaction store. And then they just let it spill over into multiplayer as well. We haven't gotten nearly as many maps as I would have liked to see. I would have liked to see, since they did 5 content offerings, I would have liked to see maybe 3 maps per, and that would put us on par with previous games that did 4 DLC packs with 4 maps each time. I would have liked to see maybe a couple more reimaginings of actual fan favorite maps and not the USS Texas. But overall, I feel they did a great job on the weapons. They've added a ton of new and fun to use weapons. They absolutely blew it out of the park with that. I cannot thank them enough for that. And obviously with the insane weapon grind that this game has, you'll be leveling up weapons forever, for better or for worse, depending on how you look at it. In terms of Warzone, obviously they've added a bunch. They made it, honestly, they pushed it as far as it can go. I'm excited for Warzone 2. Coming up this fall. I'm glad that they're finally putting this one to rest. I feel like they have truly run to the end of its limit with all the stuff they've added in Vanguard, with all the crazy limited time modes, the Godzilla stuff, the Caldera erupting now with this new mode, and all the crazy stuff they've added. It's become so bloated and so conglomerated. I'm glad it's just ending. They've pumped a lot of work into it. I loved the Fortune's Keep map that they've added, and all the updates that they've made to Resurgence Rebirth and Caldera along the line. But you could tell right now they're just throwing everything they can at the wall to try to get money. So with that being said, we are finally wrapping up the Vanguard year here in, unfortunately, 2 months to the day. We will be getting our hands on Modern Warfare 2, and we'll start this whole cycle all over again. So I want to thank you guys that stuck with me throughout all of this. Leave your comments below in the comments section. How did you feel about any of these seasons, and how did you feel about the offering overall? Was there enough maps for you, enough weapons? Did it stand up to your standards? Do you mainly play Warzone? Do you mainly play multiplayer? And how did that affect how you saw these updates? So other than that, I want to thank you all. If anyone has stuck by this far, please leave a like. It means a lot. And subscribe if you want to see more content like this. We try to do deep, in-depth reviews and commentaries at least once every week, once every other week here on the channel. So without further ado, I will see you guys later. Peace.